This, my friends, is every single Sony PlayStation handheld of all time, starting with the PocketStation. Now, this might not seem like a true handheld Sony PlayStation, but I can fit in my hand and it's got a PlayStation logo, so therefore I submit that it counts. Now, unlike the PSPs and Vitas that we're gonna be talking about very shortly, this was from an earlier time, back when this thing called the PlayStation 1 existed.
So it only existed in Japan, and they originally planned to release it in other markets, but it became so popular in Japan that they couldn't even keep up with demand.
Can I just point out that their mascot was clearly rendered on a PS1? His textures are not matched correctly. He's a little warpy and weird.
Aww.
You keep saying he. That's not just anybody. That is actually Sony's mascot, ᵗⁱ̗. And his debut was on the PocketStation.
And that was his demise too, I'm guessing?
That is apparently. I don't really hear about him now.
Oh, it's so cute! So outside the actual PocketStation itself, we've got ourselves a lanyard. You know what? Before we did this video, I had no idea that this existed. If you want to take your PocketStation with you on the go, sounds pretty portable to me. Oh, look at this. Even the little watch battery has a PlayStation logo on it. See, this has all my favorite things. PSP-ness.
Okay.
No.
Okay. We're not even at the PSP.
Is that a PlayStation logo burned into the screen? That seems less than ideal. So we've got ourselves what looks like an A button. We've got 4 little D-pad buttons here. And then we've got a speaker, the battery. So you can plug in your PocketStation directly to your PS1. And that allows you to have a wide variety of different saves and whatnot dropped onto your memory card. On top of that, some of them would give you some very interesting little bits and bobs of information on your screen. I don't know how to use it though. Oh, good Lord.
Oh, I don't think that was supposed to come off. Why did you immediately broke it?
Anyway, I fixed it. Now, when you say
PlayStation
handheld, the thing that I think is gonna come to mind for most people is the PlayStation Portable. 2005 was a magnificent year. Not counting the PocketStation, this was the very first Sony PlayStation Portable. Nintendo dominated the market. So what Sony did was they came in and they threw their biggest advantages at it. This PSP was astronomically more powerful than the Game Boy and even the DS. It had a beautiful 16:9, 272p resolution screen, full color. Nothing against the DS. Obviously it sold tremendously well. There are a lot of great games I love on the DS. But if you were a real gamer in 2005, you wanted a PSP. Now, unlike the puny cartridges of a Nintendo console, instead you had the beauty of the universal media disc. The one thing that this really missed on was it didn't have dual analog sticks. Instead, it had a single little nub, which definitely meant that you were a little bit limited when it came to certain types of games like first-person shooters and even some racing games. This also had tons of other cool features. You had an internet browser, and believe me when I say, having a portable device that I could bring in my bedroom and use the internet on was really great for 13-year-old Austin. I was super excited. I mean, look, how else would I view YouTube and Wikipedia and other kinds of wholesome media sources?
Yep.
Now, there were certainly some downsides. Sony, in all of their infinite wisdom, loved some proprietary bullshit media. And oh boy, and boy, oh boy, did they love Memory Stick Pro Duo. So the UMDs were obviously proprietary, but also the media was too. And I'll tell you, a 1 gig media stick, I want to say I paid like 80 bucks for it or something. It was so expensive. But it was important because the PSP also had PlayStation Store. You could actually download games on your PSP. Should we go down memory lane together and experience some PSP-ness together?
No. Never heard my DS make that sound.
Do you actually know how big a UMD was? I don't remember.
So it can hold up to 1.8 gigabytes.
That's a lot of data, right? I mean, that's denser than like a DVD of the time, because DVD is way bigger and can only hold like 4.7 gigs. Yes, there were trade-offs with the UMD, but the thing was, Sony actually did a really good job. Things like skipping and whatnot was very rarely an issue. And while it did make it a little vibrating, and I will certainly say it impacted battery life, but God, consider it's 2005. So let's play some Blazing Trails. All right, wow, these graphics look great. Listen to that beautiful audio and that sub 30 frames per second. While not a perfect start, this was a huge win for Sony. And really, their best shot in trying to take on Nintendo's absolute dominance in handhelds. But they did not stop with the PSP 1000. Oh no. The PSP-ness continued for many years to come.
It's ridiculous.
No more PSP-ness. I apologize, okay?
Hey,
I said it enough times, it sounds a little sus now. I'm sorry. Can we move on to the PSP 2000 yet now? This, my friends, is the PlayStation Portable 2000, which came out a little over 2 years after the original model. I mean, in some ways it was a classic slim model. It also was significantly lighter. I mean, you put these two side by side, I mean, it feels like it's significantly less. But also, as a traditional slim model, they removed some features. So things like the IR blaster is gone, but they did add some cool features. So So while it still has both the mini USB as well as it's got the little like barrel plug that you can charge it with, this also supported charging via mini USB. Now this was also a more powerful version of the PSP. So it had double the RAM and went from 32 to 64 megabytes. And it also had more internal storage. And by this point they had also unlocked that CPU, so it was always running at that much higher frequency. On top of that, this had a smaller battery.
What? Just to be clear though,
Yeah.
although the battery is smaller, due to efficiency increases, it actually will have the same battery life as the original.
One of the things I miss most about the PSP 1000. So you pop the UMD here. Listen to this. Solid, chunky, satisfying. I'm gonna do the same thing on the PSP 2000. It was no longer spring-loaded, it's just this little like door. It worked totally fine, but it also didn't quite feel as hefty. The PSP 2000 though did add one very important feature, the ability to run video out. Now mind you, you had to get like a really specific cable that was proprietary, surprise, surprise, but you actually had the ability to take your PSP 2000 and run it up to your TV. Wow, I totally was ready for that. This is said really weird connector. So you plug it in here, and then you can connect it to your fancy high definition television and get your 277p output from it. This was the Switch before it was cool. Like, see this on your DS. The PSP, the original, like it's got like the little like slightly like kind of scooped grips on it, and that extra kind of weight and stuff to me feels good. Mind you, I'm biased. This, because it's so thin, like there's nothing really for you to grab on, feels significantly less comfortable for me. Like I almost have to like grab it with my middle fingers, which it supports, but it's fine. The original PSP just felt better. This just feels a little too light, a little too cheap. I mean, look, this thing looks terrific. Now, mind you, the screen doesn't really hold up all that well, but the fact that this was running on portable hardware in the year 2008, mobile games at the time were laughable in comparison to what you could get with the PSP. And mind you, this was the PSP 2000, right? This has already been around for a couple of years at this point. This video is sponsored by Stamps.com. As our business continues to grow, taking a bunch of trips to the post office can become a real hassle. That's why Stamps.com is all about bringing these services of the US Postal Service and UPS right to your computer. No lines, no traffic, no hassle. By just hopping on Stamps.com, you can schedule a pickup while saving money with exclusive discounts on postage and shipping. With over 20 years of experience, they offer discounts you can't find anywhere else, like up to 86% off USPS and UPS rates. Not to mention their Switch and Save feature, which allows you to compare carriers and rates to ensure you're always getting the best possible deal. Whether you're an office, a side hustle Etsy shop, or doing full-on warehouse shipping, it's as simple as using your computer and printer. With a minute, you're up and running, printing official postage for any letter or package. This holiday season, trade late nights for silent nights and get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up at Stamps.com/AustinEvans for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com/AustinEvans, and thank you to Stamps.com for sponsoring this video. Moving on, we have the PSP 3000, which I have a boxed copy that I actually purchased when it was still new in the store. And I'm not gonna open it because I'm gonna save it for a special occasion. But I have a already opened PSP 3000 here. Now this actually came out only about a year after the PSP 2000, and the main upgrade was the display. So in some markets, this is actually called the PSP Bright, but regardless, you'll see the screen is a whole lot better. Wow, that literally 2 seconds and you can see. This had basically all the features you would want. And I would say if you're gonna play a PSP today, this is probably the one you want to get. I still prefer how comfortable the 1000 is, but the screen alone on the 3000 really does make a tremendous difference. And especially once you got into some of the later model games like Gran Turismo, you kind of needed that extra RAM, otherwise the load times were incredibly slow. I'm about to win this race. Everyone wanna watch me win a race? Look at that, look at that. That's what I call skill.
Mario Kart's looking really weird.
Can you go back to your corner?
I'm sorry, you're forgetting a console.
Oh, Jared, you're totally right. This stupid shit existed. Oh my, I totally forgot. This is the PSP Street. And the reason I forgot about it was because this was an ultra budget version of the PSP that was never launched in the US, I don't think, right?
No, this was only launched in PAL regions.
PAL.
This wasn't even in Japan.
Yuck. Who wants to live in a PAL region? 50 hertz? Get out of here.
As your subscriber count drops by half.
Wait, can you watch my videos in PAL regions? Oh.
What, do you think you're just banned in PAL
Europe?
regions?
Y'all are great. Guten Tag.
Here, do one for all the British people out there.
Hello.
For some reason, that was the most offensive one to say.
The PSP Street. It was for the cool kids who didn't need those extra features like Wi-Fi or a microphone. The cost cutting was all over the place. I mean, single mono speaker. You didn't even have the video out. You only had the headphone jack. All the buttons and switches feel worse. I mean, look at this. So compared to the PSP 1000, which has all these very fantastic tactile buttons, you had all these shortcuts. This has like touch sensitive nonsense. Select, start, that's it. I mean, ugh. Blech. This was like, oh, we're gonna juice the last few sales out of the PSP.
Let's go.
Let's go with the PSP Go. The PSP Go launched in 2009. This was the world's first fully digital console? Maybe there's some weird obscure thing before it, but certainly the first completely mainstream console. Now, the other thing is, as you can see, especially compared to the 1000, wildly smaller. I mean, literally in every possible way, because it had that sweet sidekick action where you could just pull it out and then you would have not only your admittedly kind of small buttons, but also you have your very small little nubbin. This was not wildly successful. Now, there are certainly some downsides to shrinking the PSP so much to create the Go. It had a smaller 3.8-inch display, which admittedly was the same resolution, so it was a little sharper, but everything certainly looks a little bit small on here. A little crunchy, especially with big boy hands. You got a lot of that twisty action. Look at it compared to like a phone of today, right? I mean, you can just see just how tiny this thing truly was. I mean, this is the small Pixel 7, right? It's not even like one of the big chungus phones. But the fact that it entirely relied on digital games meant that while Sony were living in the future, sadly that future is past because the PSP Store no longer with us. I don't think there are any games on this, right?
There are.
Oh, are there?
This is just what you had already downloaded on it, but there are games.
I'm glad that out of all the games lost to time, this is the one that we've saved. Honestly, this actually looks pretty good, mostly because the art style very much kind of leans into the PSP aesthetic. And sadly, while this console is basically no longer with us because you can't do anything, it really set the foundation for the next generation, the PlayStation life.
You're missing one. You're not forgetting any consoles, but you are forgetting a phone.
The Xperia Play! This, my friends, is the PlayStation phone. No, not your stupid backbone or your Galaxy S22 Ultra with a controller or whatever nonsense. No. The Xperia Play is a device that I actually made videos on back in the day because this was an Android-powered device that actually was really designed for gaming. So not only do you have your shoulder buttons, but you actually have a full slide-out range of controls, including 2 little touchpads. This had the full back compatibility with PlayStation 1 games. And they really kind of marketed this as a phone that you could actually buy games that were specifically designed for. Now, as you may have guessed, 2011 and Android, not a great combination when it comes to gaming, which was part of the reason why most of these games were kind of bad. But you know what I could do? I could play The Sims 3. While not really supported anymore, since it's Android, you actually can still like download stuff on and sideload. This was a proper gaming phone way before there was the Razer phone or the ROG phone. And it had Sony's backing. Problem though, was that no one really bought it. Behold the glory, magnificence, and wonder of what I can honestly say is the best PlayStation portable handheld they ever made, the PS Vita 1000. This had so much. So keep in mind that we're coming from the PSP and the PSP Go, and obviously they made a wide variety of these things, right? But they threw it all in the garbage and instead started afresh with the PS Vita. First of all, significantly more powerful. It also had significantly better graphics and had a much better display. So I'm gonna fire this thing up. Behold, my friends, touch. The Vita had a wild interface. What this really did was bring the PlayStation Portable into the 2010, 2011 era. The competition was almost less so things like the DS and the 3DS, and almost more so the devices in your pocket, which, spoiler alert, ultimately ended up winning over the Vita. Some of the things this had: a 544p display that was OLED. And while this OLED might not match up to the OLED that's probably on the phone you're watching this video on right now, for 2011, the screen was phenomenal. The Vita really had a major emphasis on the idea of being an online console. Yes, the PSP had online games, you could download them, you could play them against other people, but the Vita took it up a notch. Not only did it have terrific support with not only the PS3 and the PS4, including things like remote play, but on top of that, with the 3G model that was an option, you actually could play completely remotely. On top of that, you also had a camera on the back, you have a camera on the front, dual analog sticks. Yeah, my friends, dual. Count them. Not one nub, 2. The PS Vita also dropped the UMD in favor of the much more modern PS Vita game cards, which are pretty much exactly what you have on the Switch today. And on top of that, they ditched the memory stick mini micro Duo
so they
Pro.
switched it to micro SD card?
Exactly, except proprietary PS Vita memory cards that cost $100.
But they at least put storage on it so that you don't have to buy.
No, you had to buy one pretty much. But it's fine because Sony loves and cares about us and delivered a terrific experience. Not to spoil some of the other things that are coming up, but this was by far the best model because when they brought this out, it was expensive, but it was worth it. But you know what I can do? I can play one of the most unique games that ever hit the Vita, which is Tearaway. Tearaway is a game that does a great job of showing off just how terrific this display looks today. It also uses not only the touchscreen, but also the rear touchpad. And look, you also have gyro controls. You had pretty much everything you could need. And games like Tearaway did a terrific job of showing off not only the gameplay, but also this terrific OLED display. Alas, this is where the Vita started to take a little bit of a darker turn, because while the hardware was terrific, the graphics, pretty much everything was great about the PS Vita, it was launching at a time in which more and more people were gaming on their phones or buying a 3DS for the very many Nintendo exclusives like Mario Kart and Mario Kart again, and Zelda, and Mario Kart, and Pokemon.
And Mario Party.
And Mario Party, which meant that Sony had to get creative, because while the Vita was terrific, and again, a phenomenal piece of hardware, it was expensive, and it did not immediately have that same kind of explosive growth that the wide variety of PSPs did, which meant that they had to think a little bit outside the box. The PlayStation TV box. Okay, you hit my PSP 1000, I'm upset. The PlayStation TV, not to be confused with the PlayStation TV that they launched that was a TV with the PS2 built in, only in Japan, because that was a really weird specific thing. Or, as Jared sprints and Naruto runs over to pick up our PlayStation 3D TV, which is a very different device. No, this is the PS Vita TV. In America, it was PlayStation TV. In most places, this was just called the Vita TV. So what Sony did was they took all the guts of a PS Vita and instead shipped you a PlayStation 3 controller and a little tiny box that is all the way in the bottom. This, my friends, is the PlayStation TV, and it's about as simple as it gets. So around back, you had a few ports, including your power. It was kind of a micro console before micro consoles ever really took off, even though they never really did. But essentially, you could play almost every PS Vita game, and by extension, I said almost, I'm getting to that. And by extension, you could play a lot of PS1 games, as well as PSP games, because most of those were available digitally. The touch capabilities were not available on the Vita, which meant that any game that required a touchscreen either didn't work or straight up wouldn't even launch on the PlayStation TV. So as you can see, once you actually get the PS TV up and running, it does support 720p. And while most Vita games don't look amazing on a display, you know, they're meant to be played on a 4-inch or 5-inch or whatever size that handheld display is, but you'll see that a lot of games work fine. Problem though is that the unsupported titles are quite extensive. But this is technically a handheld adjacent-ish. This is not good. This is very much not good. The thing was, the PS TV, while not quite as powerful as something like the PS3, it had some performance. And the thing is, the Vita really had its sort of best life cycle with a lot of JRPGs and games, because in Japan, this was tremendously popular for many years, up to the point where it only really got discontinued a few years ago at this point. Whereas I think in the US, they stopped selling the PS Vita and the TV like 2017 or something, like a long time ago. Fast forward to 2014, we've got the one and only true hardware revision, which is the PS Vita 2000. The 2000 was I'll say a better looking console. It was certainly slimmer, but also it lacked some features. Most notably, it dropped this beautiful OLED display for a okay screen at best. The smaller size does make a bigger difference. And I do really like, especially this blue, right? This looks, I think, terrific. So instead of that proprietary connector, they did bring in micro USB. It also had a little bit of more storage. So I believe this had 1 gig of internal storage, not enough to really install games, but at least you didn't absolutely need one of those expensive Vita memory cards. The thing was though, it's very plasticky, it's very cheap. It also lost the 3G model, but you could tell that this is Sony saying, hey, the Vita still exists, please play me. This is Borderlands 2. First of all, that's a solid 13 frames per second. Now, Borderlands is certainly a very stylized game, but this looks and runs absolutely terrible. This is so impossible to control. It feels like there's like a half second of lag between I do something. Look at this.
And mind you, this was after I think like 3 updates to improve performance.
On top of that, if you wanted to say, I don't know, turn up the brightness of the display, certain games such as Borderlands took up too much power. The Vita wouldn't handle it. It literally will not let me max out the brightness because it's already running at 100%. Just look at them side by side. The bezels, the thinness, it was a pretty significant step up. But keep in mind that this is 3 years later, and at this point, the Vita's still alive, but it's approaching life support. This is sadly the last Sony portable console that they have ever made. Sony treated the Vita like they had treated the PSP, stuck in the old ways focusing on it being a console in a world that was quickly becoming dominated by smartphone gaming. They had so many things going for them. It felt like they gave up on it at exactly the wrong time. And guess who came along with what has ultimately turned out to be probably one of the most popular portable consoles of all time? In just a few short years, Nintendo was able to deliver a console which outperformed the Vita in performance, in screen quality, in games, and in sales in every possible way. They spent all this time building up, and if only they had given it a little bit more of a try. I truly believe that we would be playing our portable PS4, the Vita 2.0, whatever they wanted to call it, and it would be right up there with the Switch. Well, my friends, we've learned anything today. If you can't beat them, give up and fail. That's the Sony motto.